Good morning and welcome to 365 Days of Amazing Stories with Theo Mayer. Sorry. Here we are on day 279 and I'm continuing the story of the slave girl, Anis al-Jalis and Nur al-Din Ali ibn Kokah from 1001 Arabian Nights. What a story. What a story. Now, remember, Anis al-Jalis and Nur al-Din are sitting and carousing with Sheikh Ibrahim in the Palace of Statues, in the pleasure garden of Harun al-Rashid, the Caliph, the commander of the faithful, as he is known, commander of the faithful. He sees the light from the Palace of Statues, kind of gets upset with Jafar a little bit. Jafar tries to make up a story. He wants to go down and see if Sheikh Ibrahim is in fact circumcising his sons. And he does so in disguise because he doesn't want people to see him straight away. He wants to just kind of, he likes looking at things without people treating him with the reverence that they typically would if they knew who he was. And that way you kind of find out who a person really is. So off they go. They're in disguise. They get to the gates in the alleyway, which is open. And Harun al-Rashid is quite surprised by this. And off they go to Palace of Statues. And it's up off the ground a little ways. So Harun al-Rashid climbs a tree. And he looks in and he sees what he sees. And then he comes back down and he says, oh my gosh, it's amazing what's the ceremony that's going on up there. Jafar, you should go up and climb up and see for yourself and not miss out on the blessings of the holy men that are performing the ceremony. And Jafar knows something's up and he climbs up in the tree and he sees now Nur al-Din, Anis al-Jalis, and Ibrahim partying away in there, and he feels for certain that he is completely undone now. Well, Jafar climbs down out of the tree, and Harun al-Rashid turns to Jafar and he says, I just wonder how the heck did those two get in there? And who are they? He says, whoever they are, I have seldom seen any two individuals as beautiful as those two. Well, Jafar, he sees there's some positivity in what Harun al-Rashid is saying, and he says, yes, I agree wholeheartedly, O Commander of the Faithful. And then he says, let us both go up into the tree and see what happens next. And so Jafar, of course, he says, yes, let's do. And so they climb up in the tree. And as they're up there in the tree, they can hear the voices because all the windows of the palace are open. And Nur al-Din and Anis al-Jalis are asking for a musical instrument. And Harun al-Rashid, he says, I wonder what they'll get. And Jafar says, yes, what could they possibly get? And at this point, Sheikh Ibrahim gets up and he walks away. And he comes back with a beautiful lute. And Harun al-Rashid recognizes it. He even knows whose that instrument is. And he's like, oh, wow. And he turns to Jafar and he says, well, this girl is about to sing. And I will tell you this. If she sings well, I will save them and hang you alone. But if she sings poorly, I will hang all of you. And Jafar says, well, let's hope that they sing poorly. And Harun al-Rashid says, what? Why do you wish that? Well, because if we all die, at least I'll have some company and some entertainment. Harun al-Rashid smiles a little bit by this comment. Anis al-Jalis tunes the lute and then begins to sing and play. And by the time she is done, Harun al-Rashid has tears running down his face. Obviously, it was good. He says, I want to go in, and I want her to sing a song directly for me. And Jafar says, you can't go in. If you go in, well, Sheikh Ibrahim will probably die of a heart attack, and if he doesn't, he'll be so flustered that you're there that all festivities will end. Well, I have a plan, says Harun al-Rashid, and he begins to descend down out of the tree. And as he does so, he looks toward the Tigris River and he sees that there is a fisherman there on the banks, gathering together his fishing gear in order to throw a net into the water to see what he can catch. Now, it turns out that the gate was open, and this fisherman, Karim, he had seen the gate open, and taking advantage of it, he thought, the gatekeeper, well, it's not as normal. He has forgotten to close the gate. We'll take advantage of this, and it's a still night. The fish will be calm. Certainly I'll have a good catch. And so he went in. Well, Harun al-Rashid, he sees Karim there by the banks, getting ready to cast his net into the water. And he comes up with a plan. Well, the thing was that fishermen, they used to fish on that bank, and, well, Harun al-Rashid really didn't like it because he didn't like people being in that garden area, and so he had Ibrahim keep all of them away. Ibrahim kind of knew all the fishermen, but he was responsible for keeping the garden in as pristine a shape as he possibly could. So, Harun al-Rashid, and he walks over toward the fishermen with Jafar. It's a bit of a walk to the Tigris from where they are. But he gets there and he bids Karim a beautiful night. And Karim turns and looks at him and bids him a pleasant night as well. And then he begins to look more closely and closely at this man in the night and realizes it's the Caliph, Harun al-Rashid. And he begins to tremble because he knows he shouldn't be there. He folds his palms together and he says, please excuse me, O Commander of the Faithful, but I did not come here out of greed. I came here out of want. I know the rules, but the gate was left over, and I thought perhaps I could do myself some good catching tonight. Harun al-Rashid said, cast the net for me. Oh, surely. Well, Karim kind of gathers himself together and he picks up his net and casts it off from the bank. And he pulls it in, and it's a good catch of fish and a variety of different types. And he shows it to the Caliph, and Harun al-Rashid says, pull the salmon out of all those, and clean them for me, and then bring me the fish. And so Karim does what he said, and he pulls the salmon out of the catch, and he fillets them, and he brings the fish over to Harun al-Rashid. And Harun al-Rashid takes the fish, and by the time Karim was done filleting them, he picked up one of Karim's baskets, and he gathered some fresh leaves and placed the leaves in the bottom of the basket. And he had Karim place the fish on top of the leaves in the basket. And then he turned to Karim and he said, take off your clothes and give me your clothes. And Karim said, well, of course. And so Karim takes his clothes off, which were a tattered bunch of clothing. In fact, they'd been fixed probably 50, 80 times, all kinds of little patches and sew jobs here and there. And so during the time that Karim is taking his clothing off, the caliph is taking his clothing off. Excuse me. And Karim hands Harun al-Rashid his clothing and his turban. And Harun al-Rashid hands Karim his clothing and says, Karim, put my clothing on. And Harun al-Rashid puts the fisherman's clothing on. And he then bids the fisherman a good night and good luck. And he takes the basket of fish and makes his way back to the tree where Jafar is still waiting. And Jafar looks at who he thinks is Karim. And then he looks more closely and realizes that it's the caliph. And he said, Commander of the Faithful, is that really you? And Harun al-Rashid says, yes, it is. And we'll leave the story there and find out what is going to happen next. Okay, thanks for joining. Have a good rest of your day or evening.